Okay, so hello everybody. My name's Damien Pastel, and this is the first in a series of interviews that I'm going to be doing with people, normal people, who I find interesting. I'm doing these interviews because I'm basically fascinated by people. I want to understand more about them, how they see the world, and what their views are really. One of the themes that will be running through it is spirituality and meaning. So those are the kind of the pillars that I think the talks are going to be around. So without further ado, I will introduce my first guest. His name is Nathan, and I'll let him do the rest. I'm trying not to laugh about this. Over to you, Nathan. If you'd just like to give yourself a quick introduction, please.
Yes, my name is Nathan. Sorry. Yes, my name is Nathan Lawson, and I am a current undergraduate studying geography at the University of Oxford. And previously, before I studied here, I did a foundation year, unique foundation year, at one of the colleges within Oxford called Lady Margaret Hall, which is essentially designed to get people from low socioeconomic backgrounds into elite educational institutions such as Oxford, and that was in biology. And I'm also currently the president of the Climate Society, which I'm sure we'll be able to talk about a lot.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Nathan. So yeah, I've got some questions here I'd like to ask you, but I'm keen to kind of freestyle it as well, and see where it takes us. So
Yes.
So I'll begin early, if I may.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about your childhood. So
Yes.
I met you in rural East Sussex, but that's not where you grew up and where you started life. So you started life in South London, basically, as a BAME person.
I still am.
You still are. You still are.
Yes.
So completely different, upbringing and life and surroundings to me. So I'd really like to know what that was like. If you can give us some insights into that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you alluded to, I was born in South London. Very different demographic growing up to where I live now, in the south of southeast, basically. Particularly now in Kent. And yeah, what was it like? Basically, one of the things that stood out to me was the ethnic diversity of such a place. Are you still there? Oh, brilliant. Yeah, growing up with so many different cultures, it's really good to understand in fact, it'd be perfect for a person like you who's interested in different cultures and people of different ethnicities and backgrounds, because it makes life so much more, how should I say, interesting and
rich, perhaps.
Yeah, rich. Yeah. Than when it's ethnically homogenous, such as perhaps the places that we both reside in currently. So yeah, I mean that was that, and then obviously spent the first 11 years of my life there. Went to a good state comprehensive, and yeah. But I don't know what else. I don't know if you have any specific.
How did you find what was it? A big shock to the system moving to rural East Sussex from the hubbub of London?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Ethnically, yes, it is all majority white people, and when there's not that much ethnic diversity, for example, with schools, went into a big feeder school, I believe the same one as yourself. You did sort of stand out as quite visually. And also the social backgrounds that we came from were slightly different. Low income, myself, but then it's quite a middle class area. There can also be sometimes some barriers there. And we're just talking like really on a personal level, I guess, with making friends and things like that. Academically, it wasn't too much of an issue. I guess we'll get onto that later on, but it was mainly social.
Yeah, was difficult.
Yeah,
at
it's
times.
difficult integrating. Yeah, definitely. Just cultural
Yeah,
things like practicing a religion, for example, in Hinduism that I practice, you're um, supposed to wear like I guess it should be like a bindi, but like a chandler, they call it, a red dot here. And even things like that,
challenge.
people would say, I, I want to say it's ignorance and lack of knowledge, but also sometimes it's just blatant being rude and racist. But just take the mick out of things like that, which would make, whereas in London, you wouldn't have any problems expressing your culture because there's so many of them,
Yeah,
such communities, you know?
yeah. People are more aware
Yeah,
because
exactly. And
right.
understanding and appreciative of different cultures.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nathan. So that's saying. So how do you think change can be achieved? I obviously want to talk about climate change as well, but how do you think change can be achieved in these?
Yeah.
You know, obviously you need to get people's attention, which is what these movements do by causing civil, disruption to people's everyday lives. But
Well, there's most commonly when you're talking about systemic change, or just change more broadly, and climate change and racial issues. There's a lot of parallels because you could argue that it comes from the system, whatever that entity means, right? And there's two ways of looking at it: top down and bottom up. Okay, so grassroots. At the moment, just because I think most normal people, when they're born, the only option that they have really is bottom up, right? Because they're just normal citizens, unless they're born into an elite family, where they have access to the elite political class, etc. Um, then that's where most people start, and I think that's a good organisational thing to do on the ground. But then, hopefully, and it's unfortunately only a smaller section of society, a smaller slither of society that has the ability to impact things top down, because we're talking about NGOs, we're talking about governments basically, and how many people do you know working in a position of power within the government, right? Very, very little. That's the difficult thing, and people say you can talk about it all day long, but if there's nothing coming down from the top of the institutions that run the world, then it's difficult to see things change. So that's what I want to try and work towards, is the top down stuff.
okay, so it's the rise of the people is necessary, but it isn't enough. You need
Honestly, I
you
don't.
need
Again, my opinions are likely to change, but
yeah
at the current moment, I don't think it's enough. Unfortunately, it can certainly push, because what they're pushing for, when people are doing all these riots, what are they pushing for ultimately? They're pushing for top down, something to change at the top. You know, that's why often protests happen in the state capitals and near where the politicians are, right? Because they
yeah
want them to change the laws and create policies, etc. And that can only happen from the top.
yeah. It's I've been doing a lot of reading recently, and it seems that a lot of knowledgeable people are saying that democracy isn't really working anymore, and that a lot of billionaires, the billionaires club, are actually making a lot of the decisions and influencing democracy. And in effect, it's just a kind of show. It's not actually democratic anymore.
Yeah,
In
I mean,
that,
just look at the elections, right? Just look at the elections and the ability for incredibly wealthy people to swing the votes through very targeted and specific advertising, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, watch The Great Hack on Netflix if anybody's interested in that, and how, and also, even though that's different. I was going to say Edward Snowden, but that's slightly different.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that does sound kind of depressing when we talk about it like that.
Yeah, most of my thoughts are quite like, well, when you talk about non-fiction, I guess a lot of the time it is, unfortunately,
Yeah.
depressing in
But,
politics and geopolitics,
yeah.
things like that.
Hopefully, there's room to be optimistic.
Hopefully there's, I always like to leave on a positive end, because it's conversations like this that hopefully raise awareness,
Yeah.
which encourage people to act, and then hopefully we get one step closer to systematic change.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nathan. So obviously we don't have too long because we're going to keep it bite size. I'll just move on to the next question quickly. So you clearly care a lot about climate change.
Yep.
I'm interested to know where that consideration comes from. So I know, not loads of people, not loads of young people, so to speak, but I know some, and I don't know many that care as much about climate change as you. Where do you think that drive to be involved comes from?
Really good question. I think I'm trying to think where it started, right? Because I don't know.
Yeah, can you remember a point where you were like,
Yeah, I do remember one like bit that stood out is when I went to Canada, and with my temple. I
yes,
went to the temple in Toronto, and they were doing a fundraiser, a walkathon for planting trees, essentially raising money for charity that plants trees. And I remember doing a promo video and having so much so much fun, sort of not advertising, but like encouraging people to donate for what was a really important cause, to create 100,000 trees across North America. And then this was at the time of getting into my A levels, to make my choices. Ended up choosing biology, geography, and maths. And it was really through the exploration of those. I can't remember which order I should said it, but biology and math and geography.
yeah,
That I realised that, wow, this is really important. And if we don't do anything to change our behaviour, specifically with climate change, we're going to live in a really, really scary planet. Where I don't want to be too alarmist, but there's increased rate of species extinction. I'm not going to get into the depressing aspects of climate change, but basically it was very scary. And anyone who knows about maybe watch the new David Attenborough documentary that's just come out. It's called Extinction: The Facts. Again, another light-hearted topic. But yeah, basically it was a combination of alarm and also just love for the planet, really. Love for the environment.
okay. So, do you think without that trip to Canada that you might not be where you are now, or do you think
I mean, it definitely sparked the interest, because I became more interested in reading about that topic. Why is there a need to plant? Oh wait, it's because so much is being deforested, right? For urbanization, whatever it might be, oil plants. I think that did spark it. Yeah, I mean, I can't say for certain, but
yeah, of course.
yeah,
Hard to know if we've ever got a predetermined destiny, so to speak, or
yes,
whether these things are created through our life. But I like to think that things are predetermined in some way, or at least we have the capability within us to. We're here for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Cool. So you touched on faith earlier, and I know that's an important aspect of your life. Can you tell us what your spiritual beliefs are and how this? You don't have to say it specifically, but maybe if you could focus in on how they help you, because a lot of people in this world are definitely not religious, especially in the West. But and I think a lot of people miss religion or some sort of spirituality in their life as a guiding light. So it'd be interesting to know from somebody who, how important it is to you.
So I mean, traditionally, I've been raised in a Hindu family, so there's a lot of cultural things and obviously religious practices that I've grown up doing and practicing, right? And I think this really helped me with particularly the latter years of my life in university as well. It just really helped me get through some really tough times. Even if it's not in a religious aspect per se, just the actual practice of getting down and meditating and the act of praying, even though it is religious in my personal intentions are, I think anybody else can replicate it and still have, without believing, and still have really good personal benefits, clarity of mind, the ability to calm you. I have a very stressful, particularly in term times within Oxford, it gets very, very, very busy.
And can I ask, what are those techniques you use that might be applicable to other people?
Yeah, so breathing exercises, just really deep breaths, closing my eyes, and just turning all devices off and just being incredibly present. One problem I know that a lot of young people, but just a lot of very ambitious, not to ask about myself, but Ambitious people is they're never in the present. They're always like, what next, what next, what next? And they're always doing something so that for your CV or whatever it might be, so that you look good in a year's time or 2 years' time, right? To employers or whatever it might be, right? Just praying and meditating just makes you slow down. Just be like, there's only one point in time right now. And that's all I have. When you realize that's all you actually having control of, that's all you actually own is this moment. Nothing else. Everything else is disposable, will go away, right? It's temporary.
Yeah.
Just brings it back to the present.
So it's just using exercises which bring you into the present, basically.
Basically,
and
yeah.
Get off the hamster wheel of endless stimulation.
Exactly, because the other thing is like with tasks, right? In the West, we taught about productivity a lot, right? And if you're not being productive, you're wasting time. Essentially, that's the gist of what society tells us, right? In a massive condensed form. But yeah, like we're humans, right? We're finite beings. We can't just keep going endlessly, right? And so we need to actively intervene with this mode of thinking and pause and stop and just be human for a second, human being.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's fascinating. Thanks for answering that one.
All right.
Okay, so all right, yes. Cool. So I'd like to ask you about this question. You're at Oxford University. Well done. Which is, I believe, you might be able to clarify, is the #1 ranked university in the world?
Yeah, I believe for the past 5 years it has been. Yeah.
5 years, yeah.
Could be better. I'm checking.
So this is where future presidents and prime ministers study.
Boris.
Who else? Theresa
David.
May?
Yeah, Theresa May actually did geography. She's probably one of our most famous, probably the most famous alumni from our department. And the other one is Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yeah, I was going to ask. She's the Burmese. Is she still the Burmese president?
I believe so, yes. I believe so.
Yeah, wanted for...
I'm not going to go into that, but yes, war crimes.
Yeah, against the Rohingya.
Yeah, okay. Genocide. Moving on swiftly.
So yeah, moving on swiftly. So I'd like to understand, I'm fascinated with class, especially in the UK, and how power and privilege works. Are you able to give us any insight as somebody on the inside how the power and privilege works to, I don't know, I don't want to really get into the whole 1% thing, but obviously, we have a decreasing social, what's it called? Help me with the word. Social mobility.
Yeah.
We have decreasing social mobility in this country, and you just see a lot of people, basically from wealthy people who've attended Eton, going to Oxford and Cambridge. And you any understanding, sort of A, of how this happens and works, and B, of what what the procedure is inside these institutions, that what's the leg up that you receive in order to catapult you into a very
positions of power,
senior positions of power. Yeah.
Two really good questions. So Oxford's a really good place to study this phenomena of, one, social mobility, but two, also inequality, because you have the most extreme, now, maybe not even just 20, 30 years ago, because it was only one demographic. In fact, I believe it was only until the late 1900s that they started letting in, 1800s, you have to fact check me on this, but it hasn't been very long since they've let women in, and also only recently gotten better, and they're still not perfect on ethnic diversity as well. It's a brilliant place because historically it's been for one demographic, that's white middle class males, right? It's traditionally been that, and from the private schools in particular, they represent currently 7% of the student body at I believe GCSE and A level, but at Oxford currently it's about 40%. right? And that's the best it's ever been. So you can imagine what it would have been like 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? The majority of people were from such schools. So you've got this one really big extreme there. And you ask about what's the leg up that you get, sort of thing. Is if you look at places like Eton, they look not only aesthetically very, very similar to places like Oxford, it's very Hogwartsy, right? But the teaching that you get is so personal and so it teaches you to articulate yourself. So by the time you get into university and beyond, of course, you can articulate yourself really well. I think that's probably the biggest difference between that education and your average state school and also other universities outside of Oxford, right? And that's when so now we've got the Oxford scene, and you've got low income students from state school comprehensives, and you've got the mixture of these very wealthy, often privately educated people. What gives you the leg up there? Because this is supposed to be an equalizer, right? Because there's such a big push to get low income students into Oxford and Cambridge. What happens once they get there, right? Well, for me, it was that one, having confidence to speak up. There's something called what's the word when you don't believe you're more intelligent enough? I've forgotten it. Yeah, it's called not insomnia. I forgot. Oh, we're running out of time. We've got 10 more minutes left, mate. Okay, cool. I'll forget that word. But basically, yeah.
How many minutes have we done then? Just in time check.
30.
We done 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. We were just going to do 20.
Yeah, I know. This is what happens when interesting people talk.
Can we cut this out? I hope we can cut this out.
You might have to do some hard work to edit this.
If not, whoever's watching, pretend this didn't happen.
Yes, pretend it's never happened. Anyway, so the biggest thing once all these people get in is you increase your confidence and you increase your ability to articulate yourself. Now, so if I was having this conversation with you 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to get my words out realistically and articulate what I just did. And I personally think the biggest thing.
So it's the confidence and the ability to articulate yourself.
Yeah, and portray.
Is it the ability to speak the language of power?
No, because, well, how do I put this politely? The people in power, they're very good at one thing: waffling, right? Waffling, talking sounding really intelligent and articulate about a particular thing. But when you really dig deep into it, the substance of what they're saying is nothing. Often nothing there. It's completely. I mean, politicians are a brilliant example of this because they seldom answer the question.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So was it being around other people who spoke like this and had this confidence that rubbed off on you, or is it the one?
Yeah, that's it. It's how they teach. So they have in Oxford and Cambridge, and I'm not sure if they do this in Eton, but there's this thing called tutorials, which is what sets it apart from other universities, and it's basically a really small group discussion where you've got one tutor paired to a maximum usually of 3 students, and each week there's 8-week terms. They set you an essay, and then the following lesson, the following tutorial, they'll literally grill you on it, almost sentence by sentence, and saying, why did you put this here? Why did you put that there? And that's the level of scrutiny and detail that you get and attention that you get. And then further in those tutorials, they're asking, why do you think this? Why do you think? And most other universities, it's like, shush, let me just tell you information, absorb it, and regurgitate it.
Right, I get you. So the big difference is the amount of time you get with these lecturers who write the exams, who know a lot.
These are people. Do you know what the scary thing is, mate? I'm reading. They'll set reading, and they are themselves in the reading list. Their
reading is these lecturers.
They literally publish the papers and write the books. It's just man. Then you're talking.
The go-to experts in the field in the whole world sometimes are the lecturers at.
Yeah, I mean, because they all. I mean, it's the creme de la creme, isn't it? They all want to be in Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Stanford, etc. But Oxford and Cambridge, I don't know what the American system's like. It's so personal that they literally know you on a name-by-name basis. So.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. I didn't think I realised that before you went to Oxford. That there aren't. Do you have lectures? I don't think there are lectures.
No, there are lectures, but it's just that in addition to and it's an essay.
Okay, so the big difference is the tutorials where you get a lot of contact time one-on-one with your tutor, and yeah, that makes a huge difference because it's like having a private tutor
basically,
for like 3 years. Yeah,
and for the same, I know it's expensive, but for the same cost as people in other universities.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a time check, mate, because I don't want it to run out. But it's 6 minutes. So I don't know if you wanted to do your last.
Okay, cool. Okay. No, I mean, I'll just ask you a few more fun questions, and then we can wrap up. So, who are your heroes?
Who are my heroes? Malcolm X, Anthony Joshua.
Malcolm X.
My
Joshua.
dad.
Your dad. Good one.
Had to include that one in there.
No, watch that.
My sister. And yeah, just people basically who, particularly with black rights movements and things like that, civil rights movements, people who really rocked the boat. Yeah, really rocked the boat.
Made change. What do you really admire in people? You know, somebody you respect. What are the qualities they have?
Yeah, the ability to capture an audience, to have someone's attention is such a valuable thing. To be charismatic, right? And that in itself, I can never get my head around this. How someone speaking, right, literally, something as simple as speaking, okay, can influence things as big as elections. You know, influence how the world works, how a country operates. Right? Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but particularly within movements, right? I'm thinking of to inspire people to do things, right? To protest, to go out, right? Like Martin Luther King, things like that, right?
Yeah, you think of people who have changed history, and you do think of their voices. You do think of their voices, and you think of their speeches, the famous speeches that they had.
Right, and that's what stays with them. You know, the body is, what do you call it? Temporary, but now with digital technology, hopefully, these speeches, these books that you write, right, they last for a lot longer than the human body. So that's quite deep, but that's what I hope to do later on in my life.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, mate, you do that.
Yeah, good luck. I'll be watching. And what do you do for fun? How do you unwind?
Well, that's a good question, mate. That's a funny question because I don't think I do. We're filming this at 9:41.
Yes.
I don't rest enough, but I do like to play basketball. I do like to chill out in the evening with my friends and read as well.
Yeah.
And music as well. I get through. Helps me get through get through life.
What kind of music do you like?
A lot of genres I like: grime, drill, UK music, Indian music, Bollywood, Bhangra. I like a lot of Bhangra. I love jazz. I love classical when I'm studying. It depends on the mood, really. R&B. Sorry, that was basically all the genres there are.
No, it's good to have eclectic taste. Okay, well, thank you very much, Nathan. It's been very enjoyable talking to you.
And with you.
Yes, I'd like to do another one in the future, perhaps. But yeah, thanks for being the first.
No worries.
Of hopefully more than just one.
Yes, hopefully there will be multiple to come.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, best of luck with you. Best of luck with the future.
And with you. Yes.
I don't know how to end it. How do I end this?
So this is the end of the first.
I feel like I'm going to ask some amazing question at the end.
No, that was a really good question to finish on, mate.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Okay, I should do that.
Yeah, you should.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks tonight for thanks to our guest, Nathan Lawson, second year at Jesus College, Oxford, and head of the Climate Society, Oxford. and yes, a good bloke. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom with us, Nathan.
Thank you.
Lovely. I'll just shut up now. Okay, thank you and good night.